Welcome back, squad. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Full Ride, the college recruiting podcast, the podcast that educates our on the go families about the ins and outs of college recruiting. Um, our goal is to really educate and empower our student athletes to take complete control of their college recruiting journey. And I am your coach and host, Quito Delgado. So I'm so pleased that you've tuned in yet again for an episode of Full Ride. And today I have joining me Jeff Heinzen. And Jeff is awesome. And the reason why he's awesome is because he took the time to share some incredible recruiting advice for all of our parents out there. So I definitely want to make sure you take out a notepad, pen and paper, and take some notes because Jeff is the parent of a current 3-star recruit who recently committed to play Division I football. And so you got to keep listening to find out where his son, Davis, committed to. And speaking of recruits who are really approaching that finish line of college recruiting, I mean, even Davis isn't quite there yet. And the reason why I say that is because you guys should all know by now that until you put pen to paper, until you sign your national letter of intent, the recruiting process is not done. But maybe you are a senior, you're playing a fall sport, or you play a winter or a spring sport, and you have verbally committed to a school. And that's a big moment for you. So I congratulate you and just really wanted to say, you worked so hard and now your hard work is paying off. So I really am happy for you. You should feel good. But I do want to quickly share a word with you, if you don't mind. And really what it comes down to is this. You got to understand that first and foremost, you still have your senior year to complete, right? You got 6 more months of school, give or take. And, I really want you to enjoy it, right? Enjoy the memories that you are about to have and create new ones with your current high school teammates, your best friends that you've been playing alongside with for a number of years. Enjoy the opportunity to really represent your high school and put on that high school uniform over the next few months because it's going to go by fast and you're never going to have a chance to play with your best friends again. Now, of course, if you go on to college, you're going to make new friends, certainly. But really, enjoy this process of this last year. Don't rush it. And also understand, though, that pretty soon you're going to be entering the business side of sports. And the reason why I say business, because recruiting, yes, it's a business, but once you get to college, it really ratchets up. Because what you got to realize is that these college coaches, this is how they feed their families. This is how they pay to put their son or daughter possibly through school. This is how they support their families. This is how they pay their bills. I mean, this is their livelihood. And I think you need to understand that. And the reason why they are bringing you on campus and the reason why they are investing in you is because they believe you can help their team win. So you should feel honored in knowing that there's somebody out there who thinks you can help their team win. They are literally, in part, putting their livelihood in your hands. And you really need to understand the gravity of that. In addition, you also have to understand that to whom much is given, much is required. So now, many of you, if you're getting that full ride, or even if you're getting a partial scholarship, you've clearly have shown that a coach trusts you, right? They trust you. They trust that you're going to do the right thing. So I really want to encourage you that as you finish up your senior year, that you don't lose sight of the trust that has been bestowed upon you, right? So continue to go to class, continue to work hard, and don't lose sight of the fact that of what got you to this point. Because I know it's very easy to read your press clippings. You're the big man, you're the big woman on campus. You're used to walking around and getting all the pats on the backs. again, you should. Maybe you've been getting interviewed, by the local papers. You see the announcements on Twitter. People are retweeting you. Whatever the case may be, it's very easy for you to kind of feel yourself a little bit and to lose your way. And yes, I want you to enjoy this moment, and I want you to exhale and celebrate. You certainly should, but you also have to, keep that humility about you. Right? Keep the humility there. Keep working, because the last thing you want to do is show up to campus in about 6 or 9 months and you're not prepared. And then lastly, I just want you to understand this, that you need to start preparing now, and understand that things are going to change. The way you practice are going to change, right? Most schools, they record they record practices, and that was a big thing that I was not aware of, because all we watched, and when I played in high school, we just watched film of games. We never watched ourselves practice. Well, now you're in front of your peers and your coach is breaking down your practice reps, right? Everything is recorded. You can't escape the tape. So just get used to that now, get mentally prepared for that now. And then lastly, they're going to change a lot of your techniques, right? You may have been using, blocking a certain way, catching a certain way, whatever the case may be, whatever your sport, you may have been doing something a certain way for the last 5, 8, 10 years. And now all of a sudden they're going to step on campus and they're going to tell you to change it up because that's not how they do it at their program. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be open to that coaching. And you have to also probably realize for the first time in a very long time, you're not the best player, not only at your on your team, but probably not even at your position. So you just got to start to prepare for that mentally. I just wanted to share that because, again, I didn't get a chance to talk to Davis personally, but I'm so glad that Jeff did take the time to share his knowledge with me, and I just figured I'd pay it forward by speaking a little bit to Davis, but also speaking to all of you student athletes who are at the finish line of college recruiting. I'm super happy and excited for what awaits each of you. Now back to the podcast in today's episode. So Jeff really talks about being all in as a student athlete and why parents can't want it more than their son or daughter. He really breaks down how you can build a target list and narrow your choices down. The importance of following up with coaches, the importance of really treating your student athletes, really understanding that you are a product and you have to sell yourself. So we cover a lot of ground in our time together, and I just encourage you that after you listen to this episode, head on over to our website for the show notes, and it's urecruityou.com. That's you, the letter U, recruityou.com/full ride for all today's show notes. But without further ado, here is this week's interview with Jeff Heinzen. I hope you enjoy. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me this evening to talk college recruiting. But before we get in, I just have to congratulate your family, most importantly, Davis. So why don't you take an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them why it is I am congratulating your family.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Keto, for giving me the opportunity to just share a little bit about our experience with the college football recruiting process. And we are a family of 4 boys. My wife and I have 4, very proud to have 4 sons. Davis is our youngest of 4. He's a class of 2020, tight end, plays some defensive end also on the side. And yeah, the reason for the congratulations is this past summer, our son Davis has accepted a full ride scholarship, Division I FBS to Central Michigan University. And it was quite a ride to get to this, and I look forward to talking about it and sharing with our audience.
No, absolutely, and that is that's a great honor. I'm sure you know the stats. Our listeners by now should know it. 1%. That's about the number right there. 1% of high school student athletes are able to go on and earn a full ride. So Davis certainly is entering rare air. So congratulations to him. So really excited to get this perspective from our parents on really how this journey, was made possible. But before we get to that, at what point, what age, maybe what grade, did Davis really know that, college, playing in college was an actual goal that he could possibly attain?
All right. It really wasn't until his freshman year in high school that it's like the dream really started to, come in to say, wow, this really could happen. I think he for sure had the dream ever since he, would tune in with me watching the Green Bay Packers when he was, 4 years old. I think every kid at least dreams about it. But knowing that it's such a long shot, it's, even hard to really think about it as a parent or whatever. The dream is there and stuff. And for Davis also, and he played full contact football with a local club called the Manitowoc Chiefs, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and was a good high impact player. But it really then all of a sudden got to be like his 8th grade year and into 9th grade. And he grew a few more inches and, was showing some great agility, great point of contact, and really good hands and stuff like that. So all of a sudden his freshman year is when it's like, I'm thinking it and he's thinking it. It's like, this really could be, there may be football for you after high school. And like I said, so basically his freshman year is really when it really kicked in. And he shot up to 6'5", grew a few inches between 8th and 9th grade. And that really kind of like, wow, this is, he's blessed with size. That's, the one thing you really can't teach is the size and stuff like that. So once he did that, all of a sudden freshman year, we started having some real casual conversations about it, and Dad threw out a few what if kinds of questions, and then it snowballed from there.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was curious as to know, did you, because I always encourage my families when I work with them, that they really should, they should try to, if possible, like have the talk. It's one thing to make the assumption that, the student athlete wants to play in college, but it's another thing to actually get that buy-in. So was there a conversation, like, I know you kind of were throwing some stuff around, but like where you really did sit down with Davis and said, hey, is this something you really want to do?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm not kidding. There probably were several dozen checkpoints along the way from his freshman year, sophomore year, when schools started visiting him, and junior year. And my wife was really good at holding me accountable in the sense that, geez, Jeff, do you want this more than him? And I had, and then, so my point is, to your question directly, is there was numerous times that I would just sit down with Davis and say, do you want this? You want to play football? Are you sure about this, Davis? You want to go after it? Are you all in on this? Because if you're all in, so am I. But if you don't want it, that's fine too. And I'm not kidding. Several dozen of those conversations took place over the course of his freshman, sophomore, junior year, even right up to him accepting his offer over the last few months. Are you all in on this? Because if you are not, we need to know about that. But if you are, that's absolutely fabulous. And I think all parents need to be aware of that, because, I gotta keep myself in check, because any parent that's going through this process has to realize this is not about us. We're there to support. We're there to help. We're there to give advice. We're there to encourage. But make sure that our desires do not become implanted in our kid. It's up to them to decide what they want. It's obvious, but at the same time, it's when you're caught up in the thick of it, it's easy to allow our own passion to take over.
And that is such great advice, Jeff. And because I always tell families, you're going to have, like I said before, that conversation, get that buy-in from the student athlete. But the word that you used there was check in. I think that is crucial, just to kind of check in as you go, how you feel, just to make sure that they're there mentally, because it is exhausting, it's time consuming, but it's also just draining.
Absolutely.
By no means are we trying to discourage our families, but it really is a lot that goes into it. So I think as a parent, yes, you want to support them, but at the same time, you just want to make sure you check in with them to make sure that they're doing okay. So when we were connecting via email, you said you have served as Davis's agent for the past 18 months. So this is I really want to address this, because I often talk about what student athletes need to be doing, to get themselves on the radar of a coach, to build that relationship. But I don't often, at least not in the previous episodes, really dig into how the parents can the role that you all play in this process. So can you just outline what are some of the things that you did to support Davis?
Excellent. Okay. And just to preface that too, I'll get to directly answering the question without a doubt, but I was at a we were at a Power 5 school, and they had a Q&A session with the head coach of this university. And one of the parents, the parents and the coach. And it was a great opportunity for parents to ask questions of a Power 5 coach. Well, anyway, long story short, one of the parents asked the question of the coach and says, do we need to use a recruiter? And the coach gave a reply that really, I was on the borderline of being upset. Oh, you don't need that. If you're good enough, we'll find you. And I can say firsthand, coach, you are wrong. I mean, I got to respect his position without a doubt. But he kind of downplayed the use of a recruiter and said, oh, a kid doesn't need a recruiter. Well, here's my answer. The kid doesn't need a recruiter to help him out. The parent does, okay? This is new to most of us as parents. I didn't even know what an NCAA eligibility number was. I don't know what to do the sophomore year, what to do the junior year, what sort of contact do we have with these coaches, what's the NCAA rules, all this stuff. So yes, I went out and I used a recruiting firm to help me out. But here's the deal. The recruiting firm helped me as the parent. My kid is 16, 17 years old. This is heavy for a 16, 17-year-old kid to be dealing with, Division I, Division II, Division III coaches, whatever level, a kid may be at. Point is, I needed the advice. I did. What do I do? When do I do it? How do we go about this? Then I, as the parent, could pass it on to Davis. And that's why I used the term, I was his agent. I helped him out. Davis, this is what we need to do, man. You got to get on Twitter. You got to get present. You have to create a presence like this. Hey, you got to fill out these questionnaires. You got to get online. We need to carve out this time. So to be specific, I made sure that as a team, me and Davis were doing the right things at the right time. Did I have to play hardball a little bit sometimes? Yes. Davis, did you do those questionnaires? Davis, did you follow up with those coaches? So I served as making sure that he knew what he needed to do, and then following up with him as needed to say, hey, man, did you follow through on this stuff? Did you do this? In addition to that, it's a big organizational thing. You got to control the calendar. Where are we going to go? When are we going to go there? How many camps could we fit in this winter or this summer? The mail starts coming in, all these camps and invites and stuff, and keeping track of it and which ones are worthwhile looking at. So just coaching Davis on here's what we need to do, and never telling him what to do. Hey, Davis, what do you think if we went to this camp? And then on Friday we go there, and then we drive 250 miles, and then we go there, and then we stay in a hotel, and then we come back home. What do you think, Davis? He can't make those decisions on his own. So I was there to just map it out and make sure we're doing the right things at the right time. That's the easiest way to summarize it at kind of a high level.
No, and that's great. And just kind of piggybacking off what you said earlier about the recruiting. So I tell people all the time, I was like, guys, I'm not a recruiter. I'm a coach. I'm a consultant, if you will, or a teacher, or whatever word you want to use. But I do believe it is that answer from that, from the coach, and your answer, when you combine them, is perfect, because I do believe, the athletes don't necessarily need a recruiter to promote them, because ultimately, and I'm sure you'll attest to this, you all end up doing most of the work anyway.
Yeah.
But I do believe, though, it is so important for the parents. The biggest role you can do is be educated on the process and help be the guide, and hold your son or daughter accountable throughout the process. And so I love that answer for sure. So can you just let us know, when did you, what grade, or how did Davis or you all know that he was going from like someone who was on a coach's radar to truly being a recruited athlete?
Excellent. Okay. His junior year, and he goes to local Division I high school, Manitowoc Lincoln High School. When he was a junior, several Division I coaches made casual visits to his high school. Just kind of passing through. Admittedly, and I'll be careful how I say this, some of them visited him, even before it was legal to visit him, okay? That's just, okay, they're out traveling around, they pop in, and they literally may pop in just for 5 minutes, just to verify that, are you really the size that you are? He had a huddle profile, et cetera, et cetera. So his junior year, that's when things really started. Like I said earlier, it was really his freshman, sophomore year and stuff like that, where we really started thinking that maybe he could be, playing football after high school. But then now closer to the present, junior year, started getting some Division I schools that visited him at his school, would show up unannounced in some cases and just, hey, I'm here to just talk to Davis Heinzen. And they'd come down there, they'd talk to him, shake his hand. Sometimes literally, like I said, it was even 5 or 10 minutes that they would just say, hey, and they'd move on. That was his junior year. After that, then, later on in his junior year, then the second half of his junior year, you start going to the junior days. And then that's really where things, once you're into your junior year and your junior football season ends, at least for the sport of football, that's when things really start moving, because the football season's over, you got your junior film, and now all of a sudden it's like a blur, because the junior camps start kicking in, you get things in the mail constantly, the junior days, and then all of a sudden January, February, March, April, and stuff like that. There's for us anyway, there were quite a few opportunities of schools throughout the Midwest and stuff, and throughout the nation, that he was getting invites to go to their junior days. So that took him through really his junior year. Film, had some good film for his junior year, and then the junior days, and then him and I spent a lot of miles in the car and stuff like that through the winter and spring of his junior year.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because I actually get, some pushback from families when, now listen, I say that college recruiting starts your freshman year usually, but when I say it starts freshman year, it means, start planning the process, getting your foundation in order, understanding college recruiting terms, try to understand the recruiting calendar, check out eligibility center, your core classes. So it's like laying that foundation, working on your game, like really approaching it differently from that mindset. So when I say starts your freshman year, sophomore year, but I say it really doesn't kick in for most, until that junior season. And you don't have to really start reaching out to coaches until your sophomore, junior year. Like, I get so much flack from some parents because they really think that they're missing out and, that's way too late. So I'm so glad you said that. Like, and again, every sport is different, for sure. But like, I do believe, particularly for football, you really have, through your junior year, you ball out, you have some good film, and then you have the rest of the school year to position yourself, plus the summer, and then you still got now your senior year for some people who may be in the late bloomers. So I'm so glad that you shared that perspective. Now, can you just describe it for some families who may, they're new to college recruiting? I certainly know what it is, but can you just describe what junior days are and what did that entail?
Absolutely. Well, junior days is where you get invited to these things, and it's basically you tour the university. You spend, depending on where it is geographically, yes, you need to spend a few dollars on a hotel and a few meals and things like that. Basically, it is this. It is a school's first real formal way of saying, we have some interest in your kid. So you go there, they give you a tour of the campus, you meet some of the coaching staff. In some cases, you meet some of their current players who give a little bit of a testimony about their particular football program and university. They give you the tour of the facilities. They let you walk on the field. They let you put on one of their jerseys, which indeed is a thrill. Okay, and they take a bunch of pictures of that, of course. So it's the initial exposure to say, here is our university. Here's what we're about. Meet our coaches, tour our facilities, walk on our field, go in our locker room, go in our weight room. And of course, they are selling themselves as much as it is that we're selling I hate to use that word selling, but I hate to say it, your kid is a product. You're selling your product here. And I hope that doesn't sound cold to any of the parents out there, but it's true. So anyway, that's what a junior day is. The school is selling themselves to you to say, hey, we have an interest in your kid, even if it's mild. We have an interest in your kid. We want to make sure that we are on your radar screen.
And now I know for some, it's different for different program, the terminologies. But now, was Davis actually performing at that, or is that at a different time at the camps?
Very good. Yeah, and that for us too, that was a learning process. The junior days, you never strap it on. You never, they're not timing your 40. They're not doing your metrics or anything like that. It is just, like I said, a walk through the facility, get to know the coaches and stuff like that. The time frame of the junior days for us, like kind of I alluded to earlier, was really through the kind of the winter of his junior year. From what I can recall at this moment, never once did they take any metrics, do any timing or anything like that at the junior days. That did not happen until some of the camps. And it's very interesting. And I wish somebody would have actually laid this out for me earlier to say the whole process goes through this sequence of some of the really casual business, like I alluded to. Then the junior days take place. Then here we go, next phase. Now the camps start kicking in. That's all of a sudden you're into the March, April, May, June timeframe, and the camps are going nuts. Now you're getting sweaty. Now you're strapping it on. You got maybe pads, shoulder pads and helmet. You're running 40s. You're doing shuttles. You're doing long jump. You're doing high jump, and they're starting to take your metrics. That's the camps. But at the junior days was just, hey, get to know us. We want to get to know you.
So now, how did you determine which camps? Because clearly, I'm sure, again, Dave Anderson, reading up on them, I'm not to embarrass you or him, but the way I see a lot of these sites, different ones have them as a 3-star recruit, which is awesome. So I'm sure he got a lot of invites to a lot of different camps, but then the showcases and all this. So how did you all, really navigate and make the decisions on, okay, which ones are we going to go do? Which is worth our while? What's a good investment in time? And if there's any expense involved, how'd you really navigate that?
That was difficult. Yet, once it boils down to it, as a parent, we have to be realistic about things, okay? And number one, obviously, geography. Davis was not a Saban Huggins, okay? He was not. I mean, I loved what Saban has said last week on your interview. He wasn't Davis is not a 5-star or a 4-star. He was up there. He was the number 78 in the country as far as the ranking of the tight ends. So the point I'm trying to make here really is no, we're not going to go to Alabama, though. We're not, because you could go online 24/7 and stuff like that and realize Davis is not going to get an offer from Alabama. He's not going to get an offer from Clemson. I'm just being realistic here. So, so you can see they're giving their offers to the number 2 and the number 7 and the number 8 in the country and the number 14 in the country. So you got to be number one, be realistic about it. Figure out what niche your kid fits into. For Davis, he was kind of a lower level Power 5 and an upper level G5 or mid-major. So you say, what's the pocket that he fits into? Are we going to go to FCS camps? Are we going to FBS camps? So you kind of got to be realistic of where does he fit in. Don't waste your time going to schools where he doesn't have a chance, okay? And then the geography. You try to say, okay, if I'm going to drive 500 miles, I'm going to try to do this that I can knock out 2 camps in one weekend, that type of thing, or 2 junior days in one weekend. So literally what we did is we put together a bulletin board that had a calendar and it had a map, and I would sit there with Davis and say, okay, here's the places we can go. What do you think, Davis? Here's what I think, but what do you think? And we put pins on the map and say, okay, we could go here on that day, and then we could go here. So yeah, it was quite a process to filter through that and figure out where can we best spend our time? Where are the schools that you're interested in? And then of course you have to look at it and say, don't go to a school, don't be stupid, don't go to a school that doesn't have your kid's major. And Davis got offers from numerous schools that did not, he was a mechanical engineering major, and some of the schools he got offers from did not offer mechanical engineering. So you filter, let's not go there. Do not allow the scholarship to change your kid's major. So there's a lot of variables there, but it was a lot of fun. It really was. And sitting down with your kid and just talking through this, where do you want to go? And then you pack a suitcase and you hop in the car and let's go get the prize, Davis. Let's go have some fun.
No, I was just about to say that, obviously you're sharing a lot of great information, but I just as a dad myself, and my daughter is only 5. But I can imagine this probably had to bring you and Davis even a little bit closer at, just the amount of time you spent in the car.
Without a doubt. and just to go there for a minute, and I hope I'm answering your questions directly here without using too many words, but.
Oh, you're doing awesome.
Without a doubt. We estimate 10,000 miles, over 10,000 miles, okay? Going to camps in St. Louis, going to camps in the Dakotas, going to camps in Michigan, going to camps in Illinois, and just the Midwest. We didn't stretch our geography too far or anything like that, but 10,000 miles in a car with my son. Sometimes my wife was able to go, sometimes she wasn't. That is something that as a parent, you can't put a price tag on that, being able to just hit the road with your kid and talk about stuff and talk about life and talk about football and listen to his music that I can't stand. And, it's like, Davis, would you please put on your headphones now? I can't take it anymore. But just learning about him and him learning about me, and then talking football and talking camps. And then while we're in the car, it's like, Davis, okay, pull out your phone for the next hour. You're going to tweet coaches. This is work, okay? Okay, and then maybe a Friday. Okay, Davis, of all this, here's the list of schools that have shown interest in you. You're going to send a message to every one of them and say, hey, man, it's good luck tomorrow, or hope things are good. I'll coach, doing well. And let's use our time. Tweet these coaches. And then talking about, okay, we're going to this school tomorrow, Davis, go online to find out everything about this school. Who's their coach? Who's their tight ends coach? What was their record last year? When was the last time they were in a bowl game? Because guess what, Davis? Tomorrow morning, you're going to be standing eyeball to eyeball with this coach, and you got to ask them intelligent questions. They may ask you some questions. You got to be ready. So that was the car time. That was the windshield time of just learning about these schools, and really, and then going to dinner with your kid, going to a hotel with your kid, going down to the pool and going swimming with your kid. You can't put a price tag on it. It was awesome.
Now this is the I'm really enjoying this because you're sneaky with it too. You just drop little nuggets in there and you don't even know it. So I gotta rewind because I love what you just said. Like, because I'm a broken record. People are tired of hearing it from me. So I'm so glad it's coming from a parent who has it, and most importantly, David, his son. Obviously you are a big driver and help, but I always say, like, Davis and the student athletes, they're the ones that have to put in the work too. But I just can't help but, this smile when you said, you got to research the coaches. You have to reach out to them, message them, because so many times that you're right, where Davis or all the recruits, they are the product. And whether you like the word, and maybe you don't like the word, that's fine. But, at the end of the day, get over it, families. Your son or daughter, they are the product. Their athletic ability, their talents, that's what the coaches covet. But at the same time, yes, you're the product, but then you also have to be humble enough to sell yourself and market yourself to these coaches. And many times, families make the mistake, at least I believe, that I'm the product. Like, they're supposed to come after me and come banging down my door. So can you talk about the importance of really, first reaching out to coaches and then consistently developing that relationship with them over the period of time?
Without a doubt. And I did use a recruiting firm, a recruiter. And one of the things that he told me right early on was, this is a business of relationship building. And it's probably the best thing he ever said to me, because yes, you got to put yourself in the place of this coach. Okay. So here I am, I'm the tight ends coach or head coach or director of player personnel for this university. I'm being potentially bombarded with kids that are showing interest and coming at you from all angles and stuff like that. So you got a kid that, is consistent. He's humble. He's following up on messages. I mean, there were times too that a coach would reach out and say, okay, hey man, send me your transcripts, send me your SAT score, send me this or whatever it is, or fill out our questionnaire. I mean, that's got to be done in the first 24 hours, or you're creating a negative perception from that coach. You got to be on top of stuff, because playing football or any, college sport, it's a discipline. You have to show that you're a follow-through type kid. And so without a doubt, I mean, the relationships, and then if a coach messages you, you got to message them back. I don't care if it's for Davis, yes, he had his sights set on Division I. He would get messages from Division II, Division III coaches who are just feeling him out. You always reply to every coach. If a coach follows you on Twitter, you get back and say, hey man, hey coach, thanks for the follow. Not only is it professional, is it dignity, but at the same time, you never know when that tight ends coach from that Division II school is going to change jobs, and next thing you know, he's a tight ends coach for the Badgers. I mean, you got to just keep the relationship going at all costs, because that's what it's about. You got to do whatever you can to stick out in the mind of that coach to say, oh yeah, maybe we need to, hey, what about that Heinzen kid? Or what about that Smith kid? Or whatever it is. You got to build the relationship. You got to just build a trust right off the bat. And ever since Davis, just to ramble on here another moment, ever since Davis has committed to Central Michigan University, the relationship building that has taken place is something that I just love to sit back and watch. It's a two-way street. Central Michigan, and I'm going to pat him on the back, they've done an incredible job of reaching out to Davis and getting to know him and wanting him to get to know them. And but anyway, back to the recruiting process. Without a doubt, you need to keep in contact with those coaches. If they reach out to you, you got to reach back.
Nice. And now I'm reading again one of the emails, and we were exchanging before, and we were doing the coordination of this. I'm just going to read it verbatim. We said lots of lessons learned, highs and lows, disappointments and exhilaration. So we've talked a lot about the highs, right? And I'm so glad that it's all worked out so well. But, we also want to make sure we help. A big part of this is helping families avoid making, mistakes or just giving them, some insight that could maybe potentially help them, avoid some pitfalls. So what were, if you don't mind speaking on it, some lessons learned and some of the lows and disappointments that maybe you experienced along the ride?
Absolutely. And the first one that comes to mind really is when there's a school that's showing a lot of interest in your kid, and then all of a sudden overnight, they disappear. That happens. It may be it can be any reason, but at the same time, I'm just going to take the context of Division I football. There are, just for discussion's sake, 260 whatever plus or minus Division I schools with football programs. Some are FBS, half are FBS, half are FCS. Keep this in mind. All you need is one. All you need is one. I repeated this to Davis so many times. Several of his dream schools, and without using any names, several of his dream schools talked to him, visited him, tweeted him. He went to their camps. Things are warm, and it's like, oh, man, this might happen. And then all of a sudden, they stop replying to your messages. They stop replying to your tweets. That hurts, okay? And I don't like seeing my kid hurt. And he goes, Dad, all of a sudden, XYZ school, he's not getting back to me. That's a low. That's a low for your kid, because all of a sudden you realize that, and maybe you wait a month and you send another message and they don't reply, and then you need to move on. That's a low. That's a frustration. That's an aggravation, because admittedly, these schools out there, some of these coaches, they've got a large sample to choose from, and eventually you're on their list. You're on their list. Your goal is to stay on their list, and one day you may get scratched off their list. It's going to happen. But all you need is one. Don't get down about it. And my job, partly as Davis's quote-unquote agent, was to say, let's move on, man. That one's done, but there's others. There's 259 more. Let's go. Come on. Let's keep moving on this. Don't worry about that one. So that was a low, without a doubt. Where the kid and, to some degree, the parent feels like, oh, man, that's rejection. It's going to happen. Not everybody's a 5-star or a 4-star. So that's the one that sticks out the most, was just that kind of euphoria to aggravation or excitement to frustration, just because of the fact that just like it feels like overnight, all of a sudden a school just disappears off the radar because they moved a different direction.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to, piggyback that. And thanks for just being so honest and authentic with that answer, because, I try to share with families this, and, it's hard, because it happens. I don't care who you are, there's always somebody else that, they have ranked higher on their board for the most part. So a lot of times just a matter of they gotten a commitment from somebody else, and now they want to just move on. And it's hard to accept this, but you can't take it personal.
Yeah.
And you would like it, as much as you just got done saying about building relationships and respond to every email, respond to every tweet, whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's not a two-way street.
No, absolutely. They just go away. They don't tell you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just my way, and Jeff's way, families would just say, hey, stay the course. Don't take it too personal. I know it's much easier said than done, but there is a saying in sales, I think it really applies here, and that is some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? Right? That's literally the approach that you have to take with this. And even more reason, and I want to get your opinion on this, is you kind of have to have a big target list of schools that you're going after. Because I can imagine if Davis was only going after 5 schools and then, they'd fall off, then what? So can you talk about, did you build a list of schools? How did you go about that?
What we did is really by conference. We really started by that to say, okay, number one for us being in the Midwest and stuff like that, number one priority for Davis originally was the dream schools, which was largely Big Ten. After that, we said the schools in the MAC, the Mid-American Conference and stuff, because really Davis set, when we did this early on, Davis set criteria. And I think this is something I maybe even should have said earlier in the conversation, but towards the end of his junior year, when things really started getting hot, it's like, let's sit down and say, what are the things you're really looking for in a school? And just to cut to the chase on that, ideally it's this: you're going to be a tight end. Some schools looked at him as a defensive end or an offensive tackle. Okay, number one, do you want to be a tight end? Absolutely, yes. Secondly, they have your major of mechanical engineering. Thirdly, ideally, they would be a Division I FBS school. That's a dream. That's the Division 1A, okay, FBS school. Next, that they would be within 500 miles of home. Great. That's the criteria that Davis and I, mainly with Davis's input, we agreed to that to say, okay, when schools come along, if schools fit that criteria, that's the A group. That's the prime time, man. If they come calling, you are going to just work the heck out of those particular schools. If other schools come along, okay, but you can't check every box with those schools. So yes, that then narrowed it down to say, what are the schools within 500 miles? What are the schools that really want you? Because he had offers where they said they wanted to move him to a different position. He had offers from, like I said earlier, that didn't have his major. He had offers of schools that were on the East Coast. Well, they didn't meet that criteria, so we revisited that a few times. Well, Davis, what do you think about moving to Boston for your next 5 years? Well, I don't want to do that. Okay, then. Forget it then. Let's move on. So yes, to answer your question directly, yes, those are the criteria that he used to narrow down the list of schools to a more manageable number to really target.
And that is sound advice, and I love it, because this is something that families, you really need to do. Me personally, everyone's different. You have to, I call them factors. Come up with your factors, rank those factors. But then another way of saying is, what are your non-negotiables, right? Cool. I'm an East Coast kid, right? Born and raised in Schenectady, New York, the capital region. At no point in time when I was going through college recruiting did I have any interest in going to the West Coast, right? I wanted to be within 4 hours of my home. So I don't care how great the school was. Like, if I was going to be miserable there, if I was going to be homesick, I couldn't really, commit too much time researching them or considering them, because I knew my non-negotiable was I didn't want to be more than 4 hours away. I wanted my parents to be far enough where this couldn't pop in, but if I needed them, they can come to me and I can get to them, right? So as a family, mainly with the student athlete, driving this decision, you really need to have, those non-negotiables, and then check that box and almost rank every school as they come along. Jeff, you've been awesome tonight. So we always end. I can talk to you all night long, but I want to respect your time. But I do want to, I typically provide our families with a winning play, right? A strategy to kind of give them, and you've already given a ton, but to really help them, take control of their college recruiting process. So for you, what I want to do is, because you have so much, you're at the finish line here. Obviously, Davis, I'm assuming he's signing his national letter of intent in February.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So you're still there. I mean, you got a few more months, but you're right on the finish line here. So knowing what you know now, I want you to provide a winning play for our families who maybe are going into their freshman, their sophomore year, and they're about to really start the college recruiting process.
Okay. First of all, you got to be all in. This is not the type of thing that you can kind of put your toe in the water. Have those conversations with your kid. If he really wants to move forward with this, whatever sport, whatever level, if he wants to place any sport beyond high school, the conversation needs to be, do you really want this? Are you all in? This is not just a hobby. Once you get into college sports, it's not just a hobby in terms of what the expectation is. So that's it. Make sure the kid has that. Another thing there too, at least from my experience and everything there, recruiting is not free. You have to at least allocate a few dollars of your budget to say, yes, we need some gas money. We need hotel money. We need camp money. Recruiting is not free. There is an investment that needs to be made here. But above all and everything else, the lesson that I sometimes failed at miserably was enjoy the process. Will there be lows? Yes, there will. Highs and lows, disappointments and stuff like that. But above all, if you're not enjoying this, you're doing something wrong. And I thank God for my wife that she checked in with me frequently throughout the process, because sometimes, I would get too caught up in it. And, this coach didn't return Davis's call, or some of the stuff I alluded to earlier, some of the disappointments, but enjoy it. It's a once in a lifetime thing. You bond with your kid, you're helping your child through this process, and whether it works out to fulfill your dreams doesn't matter. It's what they want, so enjoy the ride, without a doubt.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing so much wisdom with our families. And squad, I hope you gained a lot of insight tonight. I know you have, so please be a good teammate and make sure you share this episode with other student athletes, with other parents, your coaches on your team, your athletic directors, whatever the case may be. But until next time, this is your coach, Keto Delgado, reminding you that college recruiting starts with you. What steps are you taking today to earn an athletic scholarship tomorrow?